Almost every country on the planet is in debt. The US owe $34 trillion. Here in the UK, we owe £2.7 trillion. And countries like Japan, well, their debt is almost twice the size of their entire economy. So here's the question. If every country is in debt, just who exactly are they borrowing from? Surely it can't be just countries lending money to each other. At some point, someone, somewhere, has to be the lender, right? Is there a giant global bank that just lends out money and we all pay back interest? Or is there more to it? Because once you understand just who governments owe money to, the whole financial system suddenly starts to make sense. Section 1, Misunderstanding. When most people hear the term national debt, they most likely think it's something similar to a credit card. Countries borrow money and at some point they have to pay the whole thing back. But that's not how it really works. In fact, global debt is less like a credit card and more like a financial web. Money constantly moves between governments, investors, banks, pension funds, and even ordinary people like you and I. And to understand this properly, a good place to start is one simple concept: government bonds. When a government needs money, it doesn't just walk into a bank and ask for a loan. What it does is it issues something called a bond. A bond is like an IOU. The government says, lend us money today and we'll pay you interest for the next 2, 5, 10, even 20 years. And when the bond matures, you get your money back. For example, let's just say the UK government issues a bond for £1,000 and you buy that bond. Every year, the government will pay you interest until a set date where the government will give you back your £1,000. Simple. But here's the interesting part. The people buying these bonds aren't just governments. In fact, most of the time, they're investors. Section 2, who lends the money? So who are these investors? Well, this might surprise you. Some of the biggest lenders to government are things like pension funds, insurance companies, banks, and investment funds. And sometimes ordinary people looking for a safe investment. Your pension, for example, might own government bonds, which technically means part of the UK's national debt is owned by your retirement fund. So when the headlines say the government owes trillions of pounds, what they don't mention is that someone's holding that debt as an asset. Just think about it for a second. For every borrower, there has to be a lender. So your pension fund investment is the government national debt. Section 3, countries owe money to their own people. Let's go one layer deeper. A huge amount of national debt is actually domestic, which means the government owes money to its citizens. Let's take Japan, for example. Japan has one of the highest national debts in the world, but around 90% of that debt is owned by Japanese investors. So Japan largely owes money to itself. With this example, looking at Japan, while the national debt may look high on paper, it's actually money circulating within its own economy. However, this isn't always the case. Some government debt can be owned internationally. For example, Japan, who we just spoke about, owns a large portion of US bonds. China owns US treasuries, and countries from all over the world owns UK gilts, which are practically the same thing. This is basically global investors looking for a safe place to store their money. And government bonds are considered one of the safest investments available. So we can now start to see that global debt isn't just something we tolerate or aim to get rid of. In many ways, countries actually rely on it. Section 5, why governments stay in debt. You might assume that governments eventually aim to clear their debt, right? When I go into my overdraft, the first thing I want to do is clear it as soon as possible. But governments don't really want to clear their debt. It's more like they just want to manage it. And the main reason for that is because national debt serves a purpose. The first is that it allows governments to smooth out and endure economic shock. In basic terms, during times of recession or in a crisis, governments tend to spend more than they can collect in taxes. Think about recent times like the 2008 financial crisis, or even a few years ago like the global pandemic. The government was forced to offer stimulus packages to support a struggling economy. The second is that governments borrow to fund long-term investments. Things like infrastructure, transport, education, healthcare, and energy. I'll let you decide how effective they are at doing that. And third, government bonds provide something the financial system desperately needs, and that is a safe asset. Pension funds, banks, insurance companies, they all need a safe place to store the huge amount of money held within them, and government bonds fill that role. Without them, huge pillars of the financial system would struggle to function. Section 6. When debt becomes dangerous. Of course, national debt isn't completely harmless. It becomes an issue when a country reaches a point when interest rate repayments are too expensive, public lose confidence, and when economic growth slows down. Generally speaking, as long as a country's economic growth is faster than its national debt, the system can keep functioning. When that balance breaks down, that's when a financial crisis can appear, and that really hurts the economy. So here's the takeaway. The global financial system isn't about avoiding debt or paying it off. It's more about managing it. Because remember, government debt doesn't just represent money owed, it represents money invested. Your pension fund, banks, insurers, even global investors. So next time you ask yourself, why are all countries in debt? Just look around. Your pension fund, infrastructure, transport, healthcare, insurance, they all wouldn't be able to function without a safe place to invest their money. And there's no safer place than government debt. If you enjoyed this little breakdown, let me know in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more personal finance content just like this. Speaking of which, if you check out this video here, I answer the question, where does all the money go when the stock market crashes? And on that note, I'll catch you in the next one, guys.